Hey there. Welcome to Silent Betrayals, where true stories cut deep and the truth doesn't come easy. If you're drawn to raw, emotional dramas about life, loss, and the choices we can't take back, hit that subscribe button, give this video a like, and let us know in the comments where you're watching from. Now, take a breath. Because this story may stay with you long after it ends. Episode 1, The Call. I wrote a letter to my baby girl the day I abandoned her. I never mailed it. 45 years later, someone else did. They found Mr. Miller crying in the hallway again. Third time this week. Evelyn dropped her book and helped him back to his chair before the aides even noticed. His hands were trembling. "She won't come," he whispered. Evelyn wiped his face with a tissue. "She will. Daughters always do." But she didn't believe it. She'd spent the last 20 years inside this beige box of a building, surrounded by ghosts still breathing. Names faded, but pain stuck around. Everyone here had a story they wouldn't tell. Evelyn just made sure their hands were warm and their eyes stayed dry. That morning, she'd helped Miller write a letter. Not just any letter, a last try. His daughter hadn't spoken to him in 15 years. Evelyn found her online. She even wrote the message herself while Miller dictated. "Tell her I'm sorry. I did things I can't take back. But I never stopped loving her." He signed it with shaky hands. Evelyn sealed the envelope and walked to the mailbox alone. For a second, her fingers trembled. It had been so long since she mailed something meaningful. 45 years, to be exact. Her own letter had never been sent. Back in her room, Evelyn sat on the edge of the bed and stared at her drawer. Second compartment. Old shoebox. She opened it. Inside, a faded envelope. No stamp. Just 2 words, carefully written in her 20-year-old handwriting, "For her." She didn't open it. She didn't need to. She remembered every line. She remembered the smell of disinfectant, the cries from the maternity ward, the way she'd walked out without looking back. She hadn't cried then. She cried later. For years. A knock on the door. She closed the box fast. "Evelyn," said Jenna, one of the aides. "You have a call. Line 2. Her throat closed. "Who is it?" She said, "She's your daughter." Everything went still. The walls. The air. Even her heart skipped something. Evelyn stood, then sat again. Her hands didn't move. Jenna hesitated. Should I tell her to call back? Evelyn swallowed. No, she picked up the phone, pulse hammering so loud she almost didn't hear the voice. "Mom?" It was soft. Careful. Not angry. Not crying. Evelyn gripped the receiver. I think you have the wrong number." "No. I don't." Silence stretched like wire between them. "I've had your letter since I was 12, the woman said. "I read it 100 times. I memorized it." Evelyn couldn't breathe. "I'm not calling for answers," she continued. "I just wanted to hear your voice once." Evelyn whispered, "I never meant for you to read it." "I know." Click. The line went dead. She sat there, staring at the wall. The humming from the hallway came back. So did the ticking clock. Everything normal. But nothing was normal. She ran to the drawer and pulled the envelope out. It was gone. Not misplaced. Not buried. Gone. She emptied the whole drawer, searched under the bed, in the closet, the books, nothing. The envelope she'd guarded for half a century had vanished. Her legs gave out. She sank to the floor. Who mailed it? When? Why now? The next morning, Mr. Miller got another letter. His daughter had written back. Evelyn watched him read it over and over, lips shaking. He looked up at her with eyes full of gratitude. She says, she'll visit. Evelyn smiled. She didn't tell him she envied him. That his daughter had something hers never would, a second chance. That night, Evelyn dreamed of a nursery. She heard her baby crying but couldn't find her. She wandered hallways that never ended. And somewhere, in a room full of mailboxes, her letter sat, stamped, sealed, sent. But not by her. Episode 2, The One Who Called. The next morning, Evelyn stared at the phone like it might ring again. It didn't. She told herself it was a mistake. Maybe the girl had the wrong Evelyn. Maybe someone found the letter, assumed too much, reached too far. Maybe it was a cruel prank. But her hands said otherwise. They trembled all morning. She spilled coffee twice and nearly dropped her toothbrush. Her knees felt hollow. The envelope was still missing. She tore through every inch of her room again. Closet. Nightstand. Even the old suitcase under her bed that hadn't been opened since Bush was president. Nothing. The shoebox was empty. She pressed her palms to her face and took a deep breath. Someone had gone through her things. She walked down the hallway, nodding to the usual faces, Mrs. Lynn humming to herself, Charles asleep in the wheelchair, the janitor with the limp. But today the air felt different. Thicker. Everyone was smiling. Evelyn wasn't. She reached the front desk. "Jenna," she said. "Did anyone come into my room yesterday while I was out?" Jenna looked up from her clipboard. "Just housekeeping, I think." "Who?" "Lena." Evelyn nodded. "Could you ask her if she saw a letter in my nightstand?" "It's personal." Jenna tilted her head. "Sure, but Lena's out today. Her kid's sick." "You okay?" Evelyn forced a smile. "I'm fine." She wasn't. She skipped lunch and sat on the bench near the garden. She hadn't done that in months, not since her arthritis got bad. But the pain in her knees couldn't match the one twisting in her stomach. She pulled out a piece of paper and wrote the only sentence that made sense: "Who mailed the letter?" Then another: "How did she know where to find me?" She folded it and slipped it into her pocket. Across the courtyard, she saw her neighbor Lorna, the former librarian with too much perfume, whispering to Mrs. Lynn. They glanced over. Evelyn looked away. That evening, she sat with the lights off, watching shadows crawl across the ceiling. The phone rang again. She picked it up on the first ring. "Hello?" Silence. She almost said, "Is it you?" But stopped. Then came the voice. "I'm sorry. I didn't mean to scare you." It was her. "Ruth. I shouldn't have called like that. I've had that letter for so long, and then suddenly, I found out where you were," and Evelyn's throat was dry. "How?" "I got it in the mail. Last week." Evelyn blinked. "I never mailed it." "I know. But someone did. It came from a private clinic in Ohio. Handwritten address. No return name." Evelyn froze. "Ohio? That's where I was born, right?" Evelyn didn't answer. "I'm not looking to ruin your life," Ruth said. "You don't owe me anything. I needed to know if you were real." "You are." "Ruth." "I'm not mad," she said quickly. "Not anymore. I was. For years. But the letter changed things. It's the only thing I've ever had that felt like the truth. Evelyn closed her eyes. I wrote it the day I left you. I never meant for you to read it. I'm glad I did. A pause. I don't know why I'm saying all this, Ruth said. Maybe I just wanted you to hear it. To hear me. Evelyn whispered, I hear you. Then silence. And again, click. She was gone. Evelyn sat still for a long time, phone in her lap. Ohio. Private clinic. No return address. That wasn't a coincidence. She stood, opened her closet, and pulled out the metal file box she hadn't touched in decades. Inside, documents, faded bills, birth certificates, letters she never sent. She dug until she found it, a folded piece of paper with a hospital logo. Sacred Pines Maternity Home, Akron, Ohio. She stared at it like it might bite. Sacred Pines had closed years ago. She remembered the letter, thank you for trusting us with your decision. Your confidentiality is our mission. A cold, lifeless phrase that had let her believe she could bury everything. Now it was clawing back. The phone rang again. Not her room. The main line. 3 minutes later, Jenna knocked. Sorry, Evelyn, someone left this for you at the front desk. She handed her a small envelope. No name. No stamp. Just one line, she doesn't know the whole story. Episode 3, she memorized it. The diner was too bright. Too clean, too shiny, too cheerful. Evelyn sat in the back booth, heart punching her ribs like a prisoner. She hadn't been outside the nursing home in 6 months. Now she was out, in real clothes, lipstick on. Waiting. The door chimed. She looked up. Ruth. Dark coat. No smile. Eyes hard, posture tight. A woman who'd learned never to expect kindness. Evelyn stood, unsure if she should hug her. Ruth just sat across from her, not saying a word. I wasn't sure you'd come, Evelyn said. I wasn't sure either. They sat in silence for a moment. The waitress came, placed water glasses. Ruth didn't touch hers. Evelyn studied her. The shape of her jaw. Her fingers. The way she tapped them on the table, same rhythm Evelyn had, when nervous. You look like your father, Evelyn said softly. Ruth didn't flinch. I don't know who that is. Evelyn swallowed. Mark. His name was Mark. Ruth leaned forward. That's the first time I've heard it. He didn't tell you? No. I never even knew he knew you. Evelyn blinked. He raised you? Ruth nodded. He and my foster mom. He wasn't my biological father, but he stayed. Took me in when I was 6. Evelyn sat back. Her head spun. I don't understand, she said. I thought, he left me. I never saw him again. Ruth's face was unreadable. He didn't talk about it. He was complicated. The waitress came back. Neither of them ordered. Evelyn looked down at her hands. I didn't abandon you out of hate. Or shame. I was scared. Alone. I thought someone better would raise you. Someone better like him? Evelyn looked up, startled. Ruth's expression cracked just a little. I don't know what kind of person he was to you, Evelyn said. But he wasn't ready then. Neither was I. Ruth reached into her bag. Pulled something out. A piece of paper, yellowed, soft from years of folding. She laid it on the table. Evelyn's breath caught. Her letter. Ruth smoothed it carefully. I memorized it. Every word. Evelyn didn't speak. I used to pretend you wrote it last week. That you were coming back. That you just got lost. Evelyn's throat tightened. I never stopped thinking about you. Ruth looked up. You say that in the letter. But you never came. I was a coward. Yes, Ruth said. You were. There was no hate in her voice. Just fact. Evelyn nodded slowly. I won't ask for forgiveness. I didn't come here to give it. Silence again. Then Ruth reached into her bag once more. This came with the letter, she said, sliding over a white envelope. It had no return address, but there was a note inside. Someone wrote your full name. And this. She handed Evelyn a photocopy. It was a form. Hospital paperwork. At the bottom, signature of biological mother, Evelyn Harper. Signature of witness, M. Logan. Evelyn stared at the second name. Mark Logan, she whispered. Ruth nodded. Is that him? Evelyn nodded slowly. He must have come back. After I left. I didn't know. Ruth said nothing. He witnessed the adoption, Evelyn said, eyes wide. That means he knew where you went. Ruth's voice dropped. He knew. All along. The air shifted. Evelyn leaned in. Ruth, did he ever tell you why he raised you? Ruth blinked. No. Just said I needed a home. That he owed it to someone. Evelyn's heart pounded. He must have found the letter, and kept it from you. Ruth looked away. He had secrets. A beat. I used to think you were dead, she said quietly. When I was a kid, I convinced myself it was easier if you died than just left. I'm so sorry. Ruth met her eyes. Then prove it. Tell me everything. Start to finish. That night, Evelyn sat alone in her room. The lights were off. Just her and the white envelope from Ruth. She read the witness form again and again. Mark had found her. Mark had signed the paper. Mark had kept her child. Why? She pulled out her old journal. Last used in 1992. On the first blank page, she wrote, he said nothing. But he was there. Why didn't he tell me? What did he take from me? She stopped. Then circled one sentence. What did he want revenge for? Episode 4, The Signature. Evelyn stood in front of a brick building that used to be something. Now it was dust and records. The county adoption records office smelled like mildew and lost lives. She clutched her visitor badge like a life raft. The clerk behind the glass barely looked up. Request form? Evelyn slid it through the slot. You're the birth mother? The woman asked. Yes. Records this old take time. And we can't release anything without proper clearance. Evelyn kept her voice steady. I'm not here for papers. I just want to know who else has accessed the file. That got the clerk's attention. She tapped keys on her keyboard, chewing her lip. Then paused. There was a request. Few years back. From who? The woman squinted. It's sealed. But the request came through a law office. What law office? The woman turned the monitor slightly. Logan and Reed. Akron. Evelyn felt the air leave her lungs. Mark. He had hired a lawyer. Gone through official channels. Not just to witness, but to watch. He had kept tabs. On her. On Ruth. Can I get a copy of the form? She asked. Only with legal permission. Of course. She left empty-handed. But not empty-headed. Back at the nursing home, she sat in the hallway outside her room. Her hands were shaking again. Not from nerves, from anger. Why had he followed her life for years, yet never said a word? What was he trying to protect? Or control? She opened her journal and scribbled, "He didn't just raise her. He monitored me. He made sure we never crossed." That evening, Ruth called. I read the letter again. Evelyn's heart jumped. "Which one?" "The one you wrote. The original." Silence. Then Ruth said, "You weren't cruel. You were scared." "I think I get that now." Evelyn sat down slowly. "Thank you." A pause. "You said his name was Mark Logan?" Ruth asked. "Yes. I Googled him." Evelyn waited. "He died 10 years ago. But before that, he ran a consulting firm. A small one. Records, background checks, that kind of thing. And he did contract work for a few clinics, including adoption agencies." Evelyn felt her stomach twist. "You think he kept track of other adoptions too?" she asked. "I don't know. But mine wasn't random. The family I went to, the Fosters, they were connected to his business partner." Evelyn whispered, "Oh my God." "It's bigger than just guilt," Ruth said. "He didn't just raise me out of kindness. He arranged it. All of it." The next morning, Evelyn requested her old medical records. She lied, said it was for a family history project. The nurse hesitated, then gave her access to what little the facility had on file from Ohio. There it was. Patient, Evelyn Harper. Date, 1980. Admission, Sacred Pines Maternity Home. Attached, a signed intake form. And another sheet. A note in cursive. Faint. Mother appears emotionally unstable. Recommending non-contact adoption. Doctor's clearance obtained. Signed, Dr. John H. She couldn't make out the last name. But the handwriting. She recognized it. Somewhere, somehow. She copied the note and took it with her. That night, she asked one of the aides, Paul, to help her scan and enlarge the signature. He printed a blown-up copy. Evelyn stared. It wasn't a doctor's signature. It was Mark's. Disguised. Slanted. Different ink. But the same L shape. The same tight curl in the G. She turned to Paul. "This isn't a doctor. You think someone faked the medical form?" "I know it." She felt the blood drain from her face. That night, another envelope appeared under her door. No one saw who left it. Inside, a photocopy of a page from a Sacred Pines internal memo, dated 2 months after Ruth's birth. Typed. Harper file flagged for post-adoption monitoring. Per external request. Nothing else. No signature. Just silence. Episode 5, He Took Something. The nurse was older now. Gray curls, thick glasses, and a voice like gravel soaked in honey. They met at a quiet coffee shop 2 towns over. Evelyn recognized her the moment she stepped in. "Karen," Evelyn said, standing up. "Evelyn Harper," the woman said, pulling her into a hug. 45 years, and I still remember your face." They sat. Evelyn kept her coat on. Her fingers gripped the coffee cup like it might slip through the past and shatter everything. "I need to ask you something," she said. "About the day I left my daughter." Karen nodded slowly. "I don't know what you remember," Evelyn continued. "But I wrote a letter. I left it in the nursery. I changed my mind. I was going to give it to someone to keep with her. Karen's face didn't change. But it's gone now. And she says it arrived last week. From a private clinic. With my name. Karen exhaled. You're not crazy. I remember the letter. Evelyn sat up straighter. You left it in the basket, Karen said. I saw it before anyone else did. Did you read it? No. But I remember the envelope. Pale blue, handwriting neat, like a teacher's. She smiled sadly. You looked so young. Scared out of your skin. I was. Karen hesitated. You weren't the only one watching her. A man came back the next day. Said he was the father. Wanted to know where she was going. Evelyn's chest froze. Mark? I didn't know his name then. He looked controlled. Too calm. He said you'd asked him to check on the baby. I didn't. I figured. What did he do? Karen stirred her tea. He wasn't allowed near the nursery. But I made a mistake. I let him sit in the hallway outside the office. The files were out. I stepped away for 5 minutes. Evelyn's voice dropped. He took something. Karen nodded. A copy of the birth certificate. A folder. I didn't notice until later. I didn't report it. I was afraid. Evelyn gripped the edge of the table. He followed her entire life. Arranged the adoption. Made sure I never found her. Karen said nothing. He told her I didn't want her, Evelyn whispered. He raised her on a lie. Karen looked pained. Maybe he thought he was protecting her. No, Evelyn said coldly. He was protecting himself. Back at the nursing home, Evelyn locked herself in her room. Her head was buzzing, her heart pounding in a slow, steady rage. She opened the journal. He didn't just take her. He erased me. He watched me stay alone while he played savior. She pulled out the documents Ruth had given her. Compared the adoption form to the one from the records office. Same date. Same format. Different signatures. The official file had Evelyn's signature, but it wasn't hers. She knew her own handwriting. She grabbed her pen and began copying both side by side. The angles, the curves, the pressure. They didn't match. He hadn't just watched. He hadn't just followed. He had forged her consent. She called Ruth that night. You were right, Evelyn said. He orchestrated the whole thing. He forged my signature. Silence. I met someone, she continued. A nurse. She remembers him. He stole your file. Took my letter. More silence. I don't know how to make this right. You can't, Ruth said finally. Evelyn felt her throat close. But you can tell me the rest, Ruth added. Everything you were too scared to say. The next morning, Evelyn found a package outside her door. No name. No note. Just a worn black notebook inside. She opened it. Mark's handwriting. A journal. She read the first page. I took her because I couldn't take being ignored. I needed to win. I needed to matter more than Evelyn. Her breath caught. She made me feel disposable. So I made her disappear. Episode 6, The Journal. The pages were thin. Some torn at the edges. Some stained. His handwriting changed, sometimes tight, sharp, angry. Sometimes shaky, almost soft. Evelyn read slowly, afraid of what would come next. The first few entries were from 1980. The year Ruth was born. She chose to leave. Just like she always did. I gave her everything. She never even said goodbye. Then, I told the clinic I was the father. I wasn't. Not really. I wasn't anything anymore. Evelyn froze. They didn't check. They wanted her gone. Easy. Quiet. They let me walk right in. She flipped the page. I took the letter. I read it. She cried for that baby. Said she loved her. Bullshit. She left her. I burned it. Then I made another copy. Just in case. Evelyn covered her mouth. He hadn't preserved the letter. He'd rewritten it. She called Ruth. Are you sitting down? Evelyn asked. Yes. The letter you got. The one you memorized. What about it? It wasn't mine. Silence. What? It was his version. He copied what I wrote, or what he thought I would say. I just found his journal. He burned the original. Are you sure? Evelyn choked back the lump in her throat. I'm sure. Ruth said nothing for a long time. Then, quiet, then the only version of you I've ever known, was his fiction. That night, Evelyn kept reading. The entries jumped years. 1985, she started asking questions. I told her her mom died. What else could I say? 1992, Ruth wants to find her. I said we tried and failed. She cried. I said nothing. 1999, saw Evelyn in a grocery store. She didn't see me. She looked tired. Old. Alone. Good. Evelyn's hands trembled. She flipped to the last section. The handwriting was different now. Messier. Sad. 2008, she left home. College. First time I ever felt like I was losing her. And she's not even mine. 2010, cancer's back. They say it's terminal. I found the letter again. The fake one. She still has it. She reads it when she's angry. Then came the last entry. Maybe I ruined it all. Maybe I thought I was saving her. From Evelyn. From pain. But I made her believe a lie. I kept her safe in a world I controlled. Now I'll die and she'll never know the truth. Maybe that's better. The next morning, Evelyn met with the facility counselor. She needed to talk. It wasn't just abandonment, she said. He erased me. The counselor listened. He burned the real letter. Then wrote a version where I left her out of selfishness. Ruth loved that letter. It helped her survive. But it was fake. Do you want to tell her that? She already knows. I told her. How did she take it? Evelyn looked out the window. Like someone who realized they'd memorized a lie. That afternoon, Evelyn received an email. Subject line, one more thing. From Ruth. He kept everything. Birth documents. A lock of hair. Photos I never saw before. In his attic. I found a tape. Evelyn's heart stopped. It's dated a month before he died. He's talking to someone. He says, "You tried to come back." Did you? Evelyn stood up. Her legs barely held her. She went to her shoebox again, the second one. Not for letters. For guilt. Inside, a postcard. Dated 1982. Addressed to a foster agency. I want to know if my daughter is okay. If she's safe. Please, just a sentence. No reply ever came. She took a photo of it. Sent it to Ruth. Yes. I tried. Later that night, Ruth called. Voice quiet. No anger now. Just raw edges. I listened to the tape, she said. Evelyn held her breath. He was drunk. Slurring. Crying. He said your name 5 times. Said he ruined you. Evelyn closed her eyes. He said. She was going to find you. I stopped it. I stopped everything. Ruth paused. I hated you for so long, she whispered. But I think, you hated yourself even more. Episode 7, The Distance Between Them. They met at a park. Neutral ground. Public. Open. No ghosts. Ruth brought coffee. Evelyn brought a photo album. They sat on opposite sides of a wooden bench like two strangers who used to dream the same dream. I didn't come to cry, Ruth said. I didn't come to ask, Evelyn replied. Silence. Evelyn opened the album. Slowly. First page, her childhood dog. Second, her college graduation. Third, a photo of her holding a baby in a hospital gown, face turned away from the camera. Ruth leaned in. Is that? Yes. It's you. I asked the nurse to take one photo. I kept it hidden for years. Ruth stared at it. I always thought there was nothing. That I was erased from your life. You were everywhere in mine. She turned the page. Ruth reached out, touched the plastic sleeve. Your handwriting, she whispered. It looks like mine. Evelyn smiled sadly. That's something. They walked slowly afterward. The wind was crisp, leaves scraping the pavement. Ruth kept her hands in her coat. Evelyn walked with small, careful steps. I hated you, Ruth said. I know. I still might. That's okay. Ruth looked at her. You're not asking for forgiveness. I'm asking for a little time. To do what? Evelyn stopped. Looked up at the trees. To show you who I really am. Not the woman in his stories. Ruth didn't respond. But she didn't walk away either. That evening, Evelyn coughed blood into the sink. She stared at the red, trembling. Then flushed it, wiped her mouth, and sat down. She already knew. The dizziness. The weight loss. The night sweats. She had told herself it was age. Stress. Ghosts. But ghosts don't press on your lungs. The next day, she called the clinic. I need a scan, she said. Quietly. The nurse knew her. Set it up. 3 hours later, Evelyn sat in a cold room while a technician moved metal over her chest. No one said the word. They didn't need to. Later, the doctor sat across from her. Stage 4. 6 months. Maybe less. She didn't cry. She asked one question, will it hurt? The doctor nodded, gently. Eventually. She didn't tell Ruth. Not yet. Instead, she wrote a new letter. Not to her daughter. To someone else. Dear Lila, she began. I don't know your face. I don't know your voice. But I know your blood. I know your smile, even if I've never seen it. You're my granddaughter. And I need you to know something before the world takes me. She wrote until her hand cramped. Not poetry. Not guilt. Just the truth. What had been done. What had been lost. And what little still could be saved. She signed it. Folded it. Sealed it in an envelope with one word, "Lila." That weekend, Ruth called. She asked about you. Who? Evelyn asked. My daughter. Lila. She saw your picture on my phone. Said you look like me. Evelyn felt a tear creep down, uninvited. She wiped it quickly. What did you tell her? That you were someone I used to be angry at. Used to be? Ruth didn't answer. Then, do you want to meet her? Evelyn's throat caught. Very much. They planned it for next week. Just a short visit. A walk in the park. Cookies. Nothing heavy. Just faces. Voices. But that night, Evelyn found another envelope under her door. This one wasn't typed. Or labeled. Inside, a photograph. Faded. Slightly torn. Of Mark. And Evelyn. Together. From the early days. On the back, a note in block letters, "You still don't know everything." Episode 8, A Name She's Never Heard. Sunday morning came soft and gray. Evelyn dressed carefully. Not for comfort, for dignity. Simple blouse. Loose pants. Her strongest perfume, the one she hadn't used in years. It still reminded her of being loved. She put the envelope with Lila's name into her purse. Clutched it like a fragile bone. At 10:42 a.m., Ruth texted. We're parking. 5 minutes. Evelyn sat in the front lobby of the care center, hands folded, knees bouncing. At 10:50, the door opened. There they were. Ruth, holding the hand of a little girl in red sneakers. Dark curls. Curious eyes. A little shy. A little too quiet. Evelyn stood up, legs unsteady. Lila looked up at her mother. This is Evelyn, Ruth said. She's someone very special. Evelyn knelt slowly, gently. Hi, Lila. The girl tilted her head. Do you know my name? I do. I've known it a long time. You look like my mommy, Lila said. Evelyn smiled. And you look like someone I once held for 5 minutes and never forgot. They sat together at a table with paper cups of juice and store-bought cookies. Lila talked about her school, her cat, her tooth that just fell out. Evelyn listened like she was drowning in it. This small, ordinary life. Ruth kept her arms crossed most of the time. Watching. Protective. But not cold. After 30 minutes, Lila got up to color on the floor. Ruth leaned in. She likes you. I like her more than I can explain. Ruth hesitated. I found something else, she said quietly. Evelyn blinked. What? A name. In his files. Not yours. Not mine. A woman. Evelyn's body tensed. Her name was Claire Martin. She was a nurse at Sacred Pines. But she wasn't on staff. She was paid privately. By him? I don't know. But she signed off on some of the medical documents. Including the psych evaluation that got you flagged. Evelyn stared at her. The one that said I was unstable? Yes. Evelyn looked away. I've never heard that name in my life. She worked with the adoption agency. And according to one of the invoices, she was paid to facilitate consent paperwork. Evelyn's stomach dropped. You think he hired her to fake my file? I think she helped him erase you. That night, Evelyn sat alone. She didn't cry. She opened her journal. Wrote 3 names. Mark Logan, Claire Martin, Ruth Harper, then added a 4th. Lila. She stared at the page. then crossed out the first two, and circled the last. The next morning, she told the front desk she needed to mail something. She walked to the postbox herself, step by painful step. Her lungs ached. Her legs shook. But she needed to do it. She dropped the letter to Lila inside. No return address. Just her name. Just the truth. That evening, Ruth called. "I looked up Claire Martin," she said. Evelyn braced herself. "She's still alive. 82. Living in Michigan." Evelyn said nothing. "I don't know if I should talk to her," Ruth added. "Or if it would help anything." "It won't," Evelyn said. "There's no closure in ghosts. Just dust." Pause. "Lila wants to see you again." Evelyn's breath caught. "I'd like that," she said softly. But she didn't get the chance. The next morning, she collapsed in her room. The aides found her on the floor, lips pale, breath shallow. She woke in the hospital with tubes in her arms and machines whispering in her ears. Ruth came that afternoon. Evelyn smiled faintly. "I'm not scared," she said. "You should have told me. There was enough pain to go around. I didn't want to add more." Ruth sat by the bed, holding her hand. "I got your letter," she said. Evelyn blinked. "What letter?" "For Lila." She read it. Every word. Evelyn let out a tiny laugh. "Already?" she said. "She wants to be a writer like you." Evelyn turned her head slowly. "I'm not a writer." "You are now." They sat in silence. Then Ruth asked, "Do you want to know what was in the rest of the file?" Evelyn shook her head. "No. I already know what matters." But when Ruth left the room, a nurse walked in. Young. Nervous. "Miss Harper?" Evelyn nodded. The nurse handed her an envelope. "It was dropped off for you. No sender." Inside, another photograph. Claire Martin. Younger. Standing next to Mark. Smiling. On the back, "She helped more than you know." Episode 9, The Letter She Never Sent. Ruth sat at the edge of the bed, her mother's hand in hers, now weightless, now still. Evelyn Harper had died just before dawn. No drama. No last words. Just a deep breath. Then none. The hospital was quiet. Ruth didn't cry right away. She didn't know how. She just stared at the folded letter resting on Evelyn's chest. The one she'd written for Lila. The one she'd mailed without expecting to live long enough to know it arrived. 3 days later, Ruth and Lila sat on the floor of their living room, surrounded by photo albums and old journals. Lila pointed at a picture of Evelyn as a teenager. "She looks like me." "You look like her," Ruth corrected softly. Lila picked up the letter again. "She wrote like a movie. She wrote like someone who ran out of time." They buried Evelyn next to a lake just outside town. Quiet spot. No marble. Just a stone with her name and the word, "Still here." After the service, Ruth sat alone in her car, staring at the journal Evelyn had left behind. One page stood out. She'd missed it the first time. Tucked in the back. Folded tight. It wasn't Evelyn's handwriting. It was Claire Martin's. Ruth unfolded it. "If you're reading this, she's gone. And you're still searching. Just like I did. I was 24 when Mark paid me to review Evelyn's file. I knew it was fake. But I was broke. I needed to keep my license. I told myself it didn't matter. That the baby would be fine. But it did matter. I watched them from a distance for years. Evelyn never knew. Ruth never knew. But I kept the originals. The real files. The real letter. I never had the courage to send it. Until now. A second sheet slid from behind the note. Yellowed. Torn at the corners. Evelyn's original letter. Ruth read it in silence. No edits. No bitterness. No faking strength. Just raw love. You are not unwanted. I am not ready. But I want you to live, to laugh, to grow. I hope someone kind holds your hand. I hope someday you understand why I couldn't stay. And if you ever look for me, I will be waiting. Signed, Evelyn Harper. Ruth folded the letter. Then broke down. Years of confusion. Mistrust. Rage. All built on a counterfeit goodbye. And now, the real one. Too late to change anything. Right on time to change everything. That night, Ruth sat with Lila by the window. Did you love her? Lila asked. Ruth paused. Yes. I just didn't know it. Lila rested her head on her mother's shoulder. She said, I'll be a writer. You will. Will she see it? Ruth looked up at the stars. I think she already does. Weeks passed. The pain didn't leave. But it softened. Ruth went through Evelyn's room one last time before it was cleared. In the drawer behind the journals, she found something strange, an unmarked key. It didn't fit anything in the room. Or in the building. She stared at it for a long time. Then put it in her pocket. Months later, Ruth visited Claire Martin. The old woman opened the door slowly, oxygen tube looped over her ears, her hands fragile but still sharp. I figured you'd come. Ruth held up the key. Claire's face dropped. You kept it, Ruth said. Claire stepped aside. Inside, behind a faded curtain, sat an old wooden chest. The key clicked. Inside, documents. Pictures. Original medical records. A locket with a baby's hair. Hospital ID bracelets. And one final envelope. To Ruth, if you ever want to know everything. Ruth sat on the floor. Opened it. Inside, a map. A line traced from Ohio to Arizona. A small house circled. A post-it note, the woman who almost adopted you. Claire whispered behind her. She waited too. But he intercepted the call. Ruth said nothing. Then folded the map. I think I've heard enough ghosts for one life. She left the chest open. The house quiet. She didn't take the map. She didn't need it. A year later, Lila stood at the front of her classroom, holding a worn piece of paper. My grandma wrote this when she was 20. She never sent it. But I think she wanted someone to hear it. She took a deep breath. Then read Evelyn's words aloud. Her voice shook. But didn't break. The final scene, Evelyn's photo on a desk. The letter framed beside it. A caption underneath, found. At last. What did this story make you feel? We'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments.